Our main job is to solve problems, and you can get paid to solve problems. Easier way than having to manage tenants, termites, and toilets. Every deal that you do, you're going to learn stuff.
Hmm.
Every day you're alive, I thought I knew enough. I did not know enough.
Welcome back, investor. I got my partner and friend Frank Patalano from the Cashflow Kings here today. Hello, Frank.
Hello?
Frank is my partner on my first apartment building, and we've known each other for probably
5 years.
5 years. I
Yeah.
think we met in 2019. And we've been just working on our real estate businesses side by side, entrepreneurs, a limited partner on one of his projects. And I feel like I want to bring this conversation out because it's like two real estate entrepreneurs. Like we changed our careers to basically go into real estate. And now here we are 7 years later, and we can talk about the reasoning why we did it. Would we do it again? Should the listener do it? All of these kinds of things. Neither one of us are selling a coaching program. And so we just want to get it out there. We have a real estate heavy focus on the show. Mostly it's like how to go on more adventures, how to have more control over your lifestyle and figuring out how to pay for it, not just with money, but also with time. So the income side and the passive income side. But yeah, here we are like running active real estate businesses. Are we actually practicing what we preach? All getting into all of those kinds of issues, multiple streams of income. How do you make this kind of stuff work? And Frank, you have been in the trenches a long time, and I'm really looking forward to, even though I've heard the stories a lot of just really diving in more and sharing that with the listener who may be considering a big lifestyle shift by getting into real estate as an active entrepreneur versus whether they should be a passive investor. So thank you for coming on the show.
No problem. We first met through connections. There was somebody that you're in Utah, I'm in Rhode Island, and I happen to be in Massachusetts and met someone from Colorado. And he mentioned you guys on a possible deal you guys had you were working on. And we still own that deal. And while it's not necessarily generating as much income as we had hoped right now, it's still above water. And we really haven't had to feed it too much lately.
Yeah, I do make a lot of jokes when the property does need feeding, like you're my real estate sugar daddy. It's like, where are we going to get the money to do this? And I remember when the first time we met, I was outside my kids' school, which sounds funny. My kids are homeschooled, but they were doing this homeschool charter school kind of thing. So I'm outside their school and it's a school for entrepreneurship. That's what they really focused on. And I
Uh,
was just in the pickup line waiting to pick them up. And you called me to talk about a business deal. And I thought that was ironic that I'm in the car pickup line at an entrepreneurship school trying to make this big apartment deal. And you got real fast, like real deep, real fast. Cause are we going to do this partnership? Is this a good fit for us? You told me your net worth, like the very first meeting that we had and your strengths and your weaknesses. And I realized like that's been a key feature of partnering with you and getting to know you over the years is you're going to keep it real, but at the same time, you also keep it very positive. You're not overly positive, overly optimistic, but you're also somehow able to balance that reality and practicality with hope and optimism. I hope that's what I want to bring through on the show today.
yeah, you like to call it East Coast realness, I think, sometimes. But I don't necessarily get upset a lot. My focus is, hey, listen, here's a problem. What are the things we can do to figure it? Problem solvers. As entrepreneurs, as real estate investors, whatever we're doing in life, our main job is to solve problems. And you can get paid to solve problems. I originally, let's see, I was originally a school teacher. I started teaching in 2001. And before that, I was young and I was already trying to chip money away and put it into things. One of the first things I did was I invested in stocks. It was during missing the run up. If
Yeah.
got a little risky there and buying Yahoo at $400 a share, stuff like that really wasn't a way to make money. So it sounds cool. And we all dream about making money that super easy way, but there wasn't a lot of skills involved. It was risky. It was gambling. I was originally going to school full time and I was working a part time job. I was working at Sam's Club and I became a school teacher and kept the job at Sam's Club. So I was working 7 days a week. And my wife was a teacher as well. She had a second job as well. And we were lucky enough to start banking some money to put to work. And what ended up happening was you have to decide what's your goals. Do you want to keep up with the Joneses? Do you want to have lavish vacations? I felt one way or another that investing was the way to go. I didn't need to have the biggest house in the street. And we kept going with that. I'm not frugal, but I might be a little cheap sometimes.
Yeah. I feel like The passive income lie sometimes gets told. It's like that you can, if you just invest for a few years, or that apartment buildings and commercial real estate is passive income. It's not, it's running a business. But there's this lie that passive income is derived from running a business. It's not. But there's also this lie that if you just keep at it, people are like, oh, it's hard, but now I have a private jet. I think the reality is that most people, when they decide to leave their career profession in favor of their investment portfolio, there are some sacrifices to be made on the financial side. So we're not necessarily frugal or cheap, but we're just like have a budget that we have set and we've decided I'm going to stick to this budget so that I can not work. And other people have different spots. They're like, here's my budget. I haven't hit that yet. So I'm going to keep working until I hit that. And everybody just has a different spot where they're like, I could get out now.
If you want to be passive, you have to make active choices with your money every day.
Yes.
The best way to say it. And obviously, we've talked about this before. Multiple streams of income are so important. It's very hard to be successful or to be passive eventually if you're only generating from a regular job. We all know that job, some people joke that means just over broke. And what I don't know if you've never heard that before,
I
maybe.
actually have not heard that. I
Okay.
think I should have.
So yeah, so think about it. You're making this income and then you're spending this level. It's hard to generate enough solid investments to be able to go passive easily.
Mhm.
You have to put in the work, you put in the sacrifice, and you have to build multiple streams of income.
Yeah. Especially for the younger people listening to the show. Most of the people who are listening are probably 40 to maybe up to 55, and they're looking to retire early. Certainly, you have to have passive income to retire ever. And they don't want to retire in the traditional sense where they want to read the Reader's Digest and watch cable all day, but they just don't want to have the job, like you said. But we also have a lot of younger listeners, Gen Z, younger millennials who are almost Gen Z, and they're listening to this and they're thinking, how do I generate passive income or easy money? Like, how do I get rich fast? And those kinds of things. And I think that the most important thing about passive income for any of those groups listening, it's like you have to make the money first. If you want your money to work, you have to make the money first and then you put the money to work passively. And so, where you did, where you've got you and your wife between you have 4 jobs, were you struggling with burnout? And did you feel like you had now not one job, but now 2 jobs? Or did you feel more control because now you had more control of your income? You didn't have to work, especially the second job. I don't know. Describe to me the emotions you went through when you were working that much.
Early on, the problem was '01 to '05, and we had
Mhm.
the run up of the last real estate cycle.
Yeah.
We were saving for a house, but sometimes I felt like it was getting away from us. Prices were rising so much. And eventually, we did buy a house at the top of the last cycle,
Mm.
and the market collapsed a little bit. And every cycle's different. But we were at the point where we were stable and we didn't have to worry. There were so many people that I know that were freaking out. In our area, prices went down more than 25%.
Yeah.
We didn't have to worry about it because we put down 25% as the down payment and we could easily afford the house. So we were able to continue to save money. And my wife left her second job because we had our oldest, and we could afford for her to stay home for a few months while our daughter was born, which was nice. And I just kept working. And I was reading though, too. So,
Mhm.
like you're saying, you can have goals in some ways. I wasn't feeling negativity about it. I was starting to invest already, mostly doing small loans, almost like hard money in decent ways. And I was able to get that to grow. I got to the point by 2009 where I was trying to buy that first multifamily, small triplex near me, foreclosure, needed some work. I didn't have the time to put the work in. We did pay other people to do it.
Mhm.
But every year, my goal was to try to pick up another house,
Okay.
whether I had to do it myself or had to creatively do it with a partner. And did we luck out a little bit in the cycle? Absolutely. But I kept working. By the time of investing in that first deal in '09, by 2016, we had a number of properties. And one of the big things is I didn't take any money out of the business because I didn't have to. So that was really nice is that I was still working 2 jobs, still banking more money. And every dollar, the only time we took money out of the businesses, when our first child was born, we bought a van. So, when our twins were born, we bought a van and we bought it used and it was $25,000 cash.
Mhm.
we could have forced my wife to stay at home for over a year when the twins were born, and we didn't want to have another payment. Like I said, I took the money out of the business and we bought it cash.
Nice.
It's did I lose some of that compounding interest? Yes, but it was worth it not to have another payment to worry about.
Yeah. We could all leave our money in compounding indefinitely and pass along the money to our kids and never touch a dime of it. And we do know some people who are that frugal or like that. They're so afraid to kill the golden compounding goose that they never take any money off of it. I admit for me, like when we first left the job, I had saved up a year's worth of income. We put it in a life insurance policy so that we were just like taking little loans out of that as we needed to pay for our living expenses. And we were just trying to stretch that out as long as we possibly could, right? Because we don't want to touch it. So he got severance because he got laid off, not quit. That made he qualified for unemployment. So I was like, oh, sweet. We're going to push out having to touch this stuff for months and months, maybe a whole year. That gives us 2 years of money to figure out, like, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? And I feel like the lack of ability to touch any of the money has made for some scary months because we would overinvest and then it becomes illiquid because we weren't overinvesting in the stock market, right? We were overinvesting in illiquid things. And then we'd have months where we're like, uh-oh, like we're so afraid to kill the compounding goose that we were not pulling out enough even for some basic living expenses. And I was just like, I feel like the brokest millionaire on the planet right now.
Asset rich, cash poor. I
Mhm.
understand. You're speaking my language. I get it completely.
Yeah, but as the host of the Cashflow Kings podcast, I remember when I very first met you thinking, what does that mean, cash flow? Because you hear about it, but I was very into the equity heavy side of things, which is going to grow faster. And my husband had a W-2 that kept all of our lights on and met our basic expenses. It was a good job that he had. And so I never took any money out of the business either because we didn't need it for our living expenses. But then I remember asking you, I like, hey, I want my husband to leave his job. He wants to quit his job. We don't have any cash flow. Like, as the cash flow king, what are we doing wrong here? Because we have done what people told us. We invested and we didn't pull any money out. And now he can't leave his job because everything we've done is illiquid and long delayed gratification long term. And now we have no cash flow to be able to retire on. I don't know if you remember this conversation, but imagine we were having it again. What would you tell me?
Well, I think right now we're in a different place than when we had it then. 5 years has changed a lot.
Yeah.
But I did say that you had to find a way to move some of that illiquid, that passive side to be active again, even
Hmm.
if it's active in real estate, where you have to make some decisions, even if it's lending money, which is pretty passive. I'm probably, when I sell my next building, I'll go back to do some lending. That's an easier way than having to manage tenants, termites, and toilets. Let somebody else do it, and then you're locked in as the first priority to get paid.
Yeah.
The second after the government, but still.
Yeah, first lien loan takes on a different meaning, but that's basically what we ended up doing. We shifted our priority from acquiring equity assets over to acquiring private lending assets and liens. I even found somebody else to do that for me. I partnered with our local RIA president who was already initiating hard money loans because of his connections and he had a lot of loan requests coming in and he didn't syndicate. I said, I syndicate, which for the listener, that basically means that we pool money together and there are a lot of rules you need to follow from the government to make sure that you're pooling money legally. There's just a lot of protections that go in for the passive investor to not get scammed or facing incompetence or moving money around from projects that there're just a lot of rules, the way you can talk about it, how you can advertise it. And so a lot of people are scared of syndication because it can carry with it some pretty stiff white collar crime types of penalties if you do it incorrectly. I felt confident that I knew how to syndicate so we syndicated this hard money lending fund, but that's not the way that you go about doing it. Like we pool investor capital in a syndication, but you're doing more like your own cash the way that my partner was before we
Oh, yeah,
syndicate.
yeah, making my own decisions. It's all I have people that contact me all the time saying, "Hey, I'm looking to do a flip. I need a few $100,000. Would you lend on this?" Stuff like that. And then you get all the return too. And if they don't pay, you could eventually foreclose if you needed to as well.
Yeah.
Or they can keep making payments for longer.
Like a loan modification of
Yeah.
sorts. Yeah. We don't loan to own. I don't want the house. Like you said, if you foreclose on the house, now you have the tenants, toilets, and trash
Yeah, yeah.
instead of a loan. So it's important that we work with our borrowers and make sure they're experienced and also if do everything we can before we take that house back because I do not want it. And over the last couple of years of dealing with me, like I don't like asset management. I thought I actually thought that I would when we first got into our first deal
Remember.
together. And the deeper we got into it and the more projects I got, because I think at one point the height I had 5 where I was managing partner. It was a lot, and it was just constant asset management meetings, which was fine, but the stress of how are we gonna pay to solve this problem? Because like you said, we solve problems, but mostly it's how are we gonna pay for the solution? Because when money is no object, solutions come easy, right?
Huh,
It's how to
definitely.
do it on a shoestring. How do we make sure that we're protecting investor capital? That really stresses me out. And I don't like asset management. I don't want the property back. You seem to enjoy asset management a little bit more than I do. I don't know. Is that true?
I'm definitely super concerned about my own money, so
Mhm.
I you have to take a positive and active role in it sometimes. Because if not, I've seen too many deals where if you're not actually managing it, then your property managers are like, "Oh, yeah, it's not a big deal."
Yes.
And then it starts to fall apart in some ways.
I did hear an interesting quote last week from the conference that we were at. It was from an investor who had integrated property management. And he said third party property managers and property owners have diametrically opposed motivations. And that's why it often doesn't work. And he mentioned that if the property manager raises the NOI by, say, I don't know, $100,000 a year or something, you multiply that by the cap rate, it could be $1 million or more of increased value to the owners, but the property manager for that same NOI increase only makes an extra $6,000. So they are not being rewarded at the same way that we are because the increase in property value doesn't matter to them. They're not going to make any more money. Only cash flows or how much money they're making only matters to them. And he said that's why we brought it in house is so that our own property manager would be motivated by increases in property value. I don't know. Have comment on that.
I have heard the concept before. I would say that internal management is still a lot of work as well.
It is.
I have friends that manage over 1,000 doors in-house.
Mhm.
And don't forget, there's only 24 hours in the day. So they need to have other employees that are involved. And that if that employee quits or gets sick or not performing, there's risks involved, there's more liability. We've thought about it on a few properties, taking
Mhm.
them in-house. The one you're an LP on, stuff like that. We've thought about taking it in-house, but it is a lot of work. I would say that there are definitely different types of property managers as well. There are some that are more motivated by their own money, and there are others that are motivated to make some money, but they're also motivated to help others as well. And that
Mhm.
includes their clients.
Yeah, the power of referrals there. I think the ones that are really concerned about getting referrals, meaning they still have room, they can grow. Like they're not all in over their heads with the properties they already have. They want to do a great job so that you refer them. It's your the property owners. They tend to do the best job for us because they have room to grow. Those tend to be the larger companies, I've noticed. The larger companies have their own problems because they tend to not have their finger on the details as much, but yet they feel like more of a partner to me because they're also trying to grow. Whereas the smaller ones tend to feel like I'm at capacity, like I can't take on any more projects.
Back to the concept that I'll repeat it again. There's only 24 hours in the day.
Mhm.
So you have to figure out what your skill set, what you like to do. And sometimes you have to pass off a lot of other things. And at the same point, especially if you're really good at numbers or really good at asset management, a lot of people are not going to do it as well as you are. But in order to grow, you have to release some of that responsibility to people that you trust, even if they're going to fall down once in a while.
That's true. Uh-huh. How do you define asset management versus property management? What's the
Right.
difference between the 2?
So property management to me is someone that is on site or actively managing your property. When I say asset management, I'm like managing the manager. So I'm caring more about to make sure, especially when I have investors involved, that the investment is doing well. And I have to make bigger decisions than a property manager. So a property manager, like for example, one of our roof issues,
Okay.
the property manager, their job is to grab 3 quotes. Our job is to make the decision on what you're going to tell them to do.
Okay. So it's a step removed versus who's making the decisions on who's swinging the hammer or how the hammer is being swung. And we're more managing as owners because there are professional asset managers. When you get large enough, you'll have an
Absolutely.
employee doing that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the owner, but for smaller businesses, it's the owners.
Yeah. So back to the story a little bit. So by 2017, we had a bunch of small properties. They weren't necessarily making any money. They were local. They were doing okay. They were
Mhm.
over time, they'd gradually grow and you'd pay off the debt and you get the tax deduction. And I was still working the 2 jobs and it got to the point where teaching is quite different than some other jobs. and it's changed a lot in the past few years. So I was starting to get to the point where it's, do I think that I could turn what I do now into something more full time?
Mhm.
And can I leave teaching? Because every year there's problems and this and that. And don't get me wrong, I loved working with the kids and seeing them learning and everything else, but more the administrative changes and all the rules changing and always every year you got, oh, this new idea that we're going to build as we're crashing the airplane, stuff like that. Eventually, I decided that there was probably a path for me to get out of teaching. And I still stayed at the retail job because I could leave that one anytime. And it
Yeah.
wasn't as much work involved, grading paper or stuff like that. It was more just sales and retail and helping people. But
Yeah.
one of the interesting things I did, and you talk about being an entrepreneur, it just happened that in 2018, 2019, besides doing the real estate, I decided to open a few businesses. So we started the podcast.
Mhm.
I took over running the local RIA. We started a virtual assistant company and we started the syndication company. So we started all these little businesses, and most of them we were able to start for only a small amount of money. So there wasn't a massive capital expense on those. And if they took off, you could generate income a little easier than you could of working a full time job.
Yes, but I'm finding that, like, you like running the businesses, that's enjoyable. It's not fun roses every day. You have, again, problems you need to solve and how are we gonna solve this on a budget type of stuff. But overall, you like doing it. And I think it's important to point out, like, there are stages of retiring on passive income. You could have waited until you had 100% of your income replaced by truly passive income before you left your job. But you instead decided to bridge the gap financially between those 2 things to say, I can leave teaching, but I should have some other businesses and some other things going on. Was that a financial bridge or was that a time bridge? Because it's important to think about both when you're leaving a
I
job.
consider it like a runway, almost like an airplane taking off versus a helicopter.
Okay.
You're giving yourself a runway to try a few things as you're leaving the airport in order to see if it works out. And you might enjoy them. And yeah, I'm not saying I'm ever going to be 100% passive, though I do enjoy obviously getting mailbox money. I got a
Yeah.
whole stack of checks here from different deals that I literally don't even worry about. There are properties, even locally, there are properties I haven't driven by in over a year
Mhm.
that every month I get a check. My partner and I said, "Hey, we make this much money." It's not always a ton of money, but on a triplex, if you're getting $300 a piece every month and you haven't had to set foot on the property, it's pretty good.
Yeah. I call it like semi-passive income or residual income where you do the work. It's still your business, but the business has become hands off. And then you've got the passive income where you're a limited partner and only your money is working. You made the decision to put it in, but once it's in, you're like, hands off. It's like buying a stock.
Yeah. How many hours to say passive? And I know we joke about this concept. Are
Yeah.
you saying 0 hours a month
No.
or, yeah, no. So to
It's like
give
you're
an
not
example,
actively managing the business. You're only actively managing the portfolio.
yeah. So our virtual assistant business, we have a full-time CEO. So I'm one of the founders and I am spending less than an hour a day on the business.
Okay.
Maybe I'll get a 10-minute phone call. Maybe I'll promote the business that I don't have to,
Mhm.
or I still retain payroll. Hard to pay people in 7 countries on 4 different platforms. And you really don't want to pass that off to another employee in the business.
Yeah. Do you specialize in real estate virtual assistants or do you have a broader
We're
because
pretty
I'm
broad. We focus on administrative assistants like secretaries.
Mhm.
We focus on social media support, like, yeah, social media. And then bookkeeping.
Okay.
And then what's cool is since we can be entrepreneurs and keep thinking of new ideas, well, let me tell the whole story. Maybe that'll
Yeah.
help.
This is such a
So
good
my
story.
partner on the VA business, he's from Rhode Island. We met at a real estate meeting and he's an entrepreneur and he loves it. And he knows I do all this real estate and we were making good money. And he says to me, he says, I'd love to own property in my parents' home country someday. I said, dude, let's do it. So he had his real estate license, but he really didn't use it. And he flew down there and he started to look at properties and he starts sending me everything. Like he's sending me like $100 million deal. It's like, whoa,
It's
slow down here. We'll find something between $1 and $5 million and we'll figure it out. So we found a nice boutique hotel, 4-minute walk to the water, and we ended up buying it. and it's very hard to finance in other parts of the world. So I'll say that we had the most aggressive seller finance structure you never want to do. I had to put 40% down, and
Wow.
then I had to pay the rest of the 60% within 12 months. So even though the property was supposed to generate on pro forma about 20 or to $25,000 a month, I had a mortgage payment of a month to pay.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a little painful, but that was 2.5, 3 years ago. And now I consider myself relatively passive with it. Am I on things? Yes. Do we have the cameras? Can I pull up the cameras if I want? Yes. But we have a full time manager that lives on site. And can I respond to Airbnb if I want? Yes. But we have a full time VA that does it during the day. And the property doesn't necessarily have a ton of income yet, but we've stopped the bleed and we own it
Mhm.
out. So
Yes.
pretty cool. And the reason why I bring that up is that we use that to think of other ways to solve people's problems.
Mm.
So what did we do? Well, with the VA company and the hotel, we started an office in India and we built our own bookkeeping app. So now, even though I know nothing about apps and development and anything else, we have a team there that built this app called Perfect Bookkeeping that anybody can use, including investors and hoteliers and everybody else. And it was a way for us to figure out, why are we missing money? We
Yeah.
actually had our second manager actually was stealing money from us. And we found out when our bookkeeper, who was a VA, said, "You're a couple $1,000s short." And I got so many businesses running, I don't have time to look at that. But if you assign somebody, they figured out within 24 hours that we were short, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And now, in order to solve that future problem, we built an app where every transaction is put into that app. And so one of the other big expenses is payroll.
Yeah.
So what did we do? We created our own check-in, check-out system. We have a kiosk. We bought the hardware. We had our team build the software. So now people can check in, check out. They can do it right on their phone as well. And it's just these cool ideas that if I was working a full-time job and didn't really have any goals, when would I ever have time to do this?
Yeah.
But now there's all these things that keep growing and it's really cool. Do we talk about passive investing? Yes. Do I have passive investments? Yes. Do I make money on them? Yes. But what's really cool is I also have these other investments that are continuing to grow in value and I don't really have to touch it.
That's the key, I think, to the show. There's the passive income part. Again, passive is about time, income is about money, and the adventure is about life. And so your definition of adventure is different than somebody else's definition of adventure. We'll contrast, right? Your wife is still working her teaching job, and
Yep.
you have 3 kids in school,
Yep.
right? So it's not like you're gonna go off to Alaska for 6 months, right? Because that's just not something that is important enough to say, "Yeah, let's change our lives around and make something like that happen," because it's you don't want to do that. So it's like people will look at adventures or things that we think are adventures, and they'll be like, "Why are you doing that?" And we're like, "Why aren't you doing it?" Everybody has a different idea, and so I love the fact that you're talking about your definition of these adventures, and you have this big smile on your face. If you're watching on YouTube, right, you can see it. Like, you're very excited when you talk about this kind of stuff, and this is an adventure, and it not just for right now, it could potentially be an adventure for many years to come. And I'm looking at this like entrepreneurship. Oh man, like people call me with when you're hands off, they only call you when it's bad. Right. And then I'm like, oh no, I have to figure out how to solve this problem that and I don't have enough money to solve the problem. That's stressing me out. But you have a big smile on your face. So that's your version of adventure.
Yeah, it's my version of fun too. Are there problems? Absolutely. Every day we're trying to solve problems. There are times that, like you said, as an entrepreneur, we're not making as much money as we had hoped. And some of the businesses are
It's
taking
just
it.
a given. It's never going to be as much as you hope, at least
Right.
at first.
My partner Pedro on these businesses, he says, "Hey, listen, some people are trying to put food on the table. The problem
Mhm.
we're trying to solve is we're building tables. We're blessed to be able to already have food to put on these tables. Now we're trying to solve the problem of building these tables."
Yes. That's
So
such a good way to look at it.
so I'm invested in on the real estate side, I'm invested in 12 markets right now. So one of my goals, talking about adventures, is I try to hit every market once a year. So I haven't been as good with it because my mom had some health issues and everything else. But maybe last year, the year before, I was able to visit every market that we have a property in at least once last year. Talk
Mhm.
about adventures. That's a cool adventure. We always have a bed available at the hotel. If I ever want to go to the Caribbean, we're working on other deals. We've made offers on new hotels in the last month. One in Roatan, Honduras, one in Rincon, Puerto Rico. You talk about adventures. We looked at a fishing tourist business on a Caribbean island that we made an offer on, where we'd be buying 2 boats and a dock and a duplex right on the water, and it's a cool adventure.
Yeah. Who's gonna okay, let's just say you got that one. Let's just hypothetically go down. You get the fishing adventure, you get the duplex, you get the boats. Who's gonna run it? How
There's already people running it. The people that own it now, they're not from that island. They wanna retire. They have a team that's already there. The team's awesome. We have someone that already lives on the island that would be a partner. You and I both know that boots on the ground partners are one of the most important things you can have. Somebody that's near whatever your asset is. So it's not a big island. We already have somebody that we trust that's on the island, and they love running it. So,
yeah,
so it works out perfectly, and it would make a ton of money. We'll see if it works out, and if not, we'll just look for the next adventure, like we said.
yes. Tell me about what you can share about the Roatan adventure because having we all know having a deal in a different city, even in the United States or even in a different state in the United States, it completely changes because these micro markets and things like this. But when you're starting to expand that internationally, you learn a lot of lessons. You learn some hard lessons, some great lessons, stuff you worked with down the road. What has been your experience internationally? What valuable lessons have you learned through some of the hardships? Like what makes you say, you know what? I learned that lesson. We're going to keep going and we're going to keep pushing into the space because I'm seeing it from front row seat. And sometimes there's some bad days, but yet you seem to love it and you want to expand that part of your business. So tell me more about that.
So every deal that you do, you're going to learn stuff.
Hmm.
Every day you're alive, you're learning if you actively think about it. And there's going to be problems no matter where you go. There's problems when we did that first deal. There's problems in every state, like you said, every market. Internationally, you're just going with a whole nother layer of problems. And no matter what, there's going to be things that you miss. There's no way to be an expert. 20 years ago, I bid on a vacant lot. I thought I knew enough. I did not know enough. If we have land under contract to build a mobile home park,
Hmm.
and we've had it under contract for 2 months. We've learned as much as we can. We've sat with the people who are actually putting in the pads and everything else, and I'm still learning at every meeting.
Yeah.
So same thing on the international side. Some of the biggest differences is just the rule of law and the taxation. There's this it's one of those things that's are you a Star Trek person?
Don't make me publicly admit to that.
Uh, I
Yes.
I I I very much admit to it.
Yeah. I'm like addicted to
So
yes.
there's one part where Spock and McCoy, it's in one of the movies, and Spock dies, and then he comes back to life and stuff like that. And McCoy wants to ask him about death. And he's like, you're telling me that you're not going to tell me until I experience death as well? So I'm not saying I don't want to tell you more, but you forget what you don't know.
Mm,
You forget what other people don't know. So one of the biggest things with the hotel is that number one, they don't work 5 hours a week. They'll work more than that if you let them. 5.5 is actually normal. So 40 hours a week is not normal there, 44 is. That's a little thing. But at the same point, for Christmas, there's the expectation in many countries that you pay them a 13th salary, like a 13th
mhm.
month. So I think off the top of my head, and Pedro handles more of the actual paying the employees. I think we pay them an extra 4 month salary at Christmas time, like Christmas bonus. It's in the Philippines, it's very common as well. So in different countries, that's one of those small things. It's like the good news, especially in Punta Cana, is that that's high season, so you can afford to do it.
Mhm, mhm.
It would be a real problem during slow season.
Yeah, but that's one of those major expenses that if you don't underwrite it on your projections, you're like, "Oh, wow, we didn't know that was coming. Now we have to do it, and now it's not making as much money as we thought it would because of this unexpected
Yep,
expense." And being able to roll with those unknowns as they become known takes a lot of
absolutely. So you joke and call me the sugar daddy, real estate sugar daddy. Pedro jokes and calls me his rich dad.
yeah.
One of the things we tried last year is the biggest expense, probably besides government taxes, and maybe besides payroll too, is electricity. So
Mhm.
electricity is very expensive on islands,
Well,
and
even when we were looking at relocating to Mexico a couple years ago, like, the electricity was just like, "Wow, this is not any cheaper than Texas. I'm not putting up with the Mexican government to live at Texas prices."
right? With that being said, Pedro did that rabbit hole deep dive into hey, we're going to put on solar. So we
Mhm.
did end up getting solar, not many tax breaks. They'll tell us there's tax breaks because we'd have to pay all these extra tariffs to bring it into the country.
Oh,
And so he learned a lot and he wanted to do it on his own. We didn't hire anybody or anything else. And there's definitely problems. There's good and bad with that because you save money by not paying a consulting fee of 40%. But then if you make mistakes, it's on you as well. One of the biggest mistakes that we learned was our batteries are not as good as we had hoped. So even though the battery quotes you a certain thing, it can only store so much. And because of, I don't know, like the sun being up and sun being down on day and night, you're not really generating power 24 hours a day. So all those little things. So we found out, and after learning and meeting with electricians, we found out we need to triple our batteries.
okay.
So we're in the process right now of saving enough money. Could we go out and buy it right now? Yes. I can go out and buy a Corvette or a Ferrari right now if I wanted to, but that money would be better used somewhere else.
Yes, and that
So what we're doing is we're trying to save enough money through the hotel business itself in order to buy the extra battery packs.
so it has to feed itself,
That's the goal,
rather
right?
than you feeding it. Yeah, you feed it in an emergency, right? And
Yeah,
the liquidity and willingness to do that, I think, has been sadly rare in my experience, like, especially the guy who signs on the loan, because I know you sign on loans as well.
absolutely.
How involved do you get? Because I've seen we had a property that we invested in as like limited partners, or we co-invested but as glorified limited partners, right? And we were just watching it go down the tubes. And the most experienced guy on the team was like, I didn't sign on this loan so I could feed this property when it was in trouble. Like, he made introductions and he did some work. But there was this expectation from people who might be new to the space, thinking that this guy, this experienced guy, is gonna step in and save this property if something is going wrong, and I just don't think that's the case. I think you've been the most willing to do that of anybody that I've worked with, but at a certain point, like, your balance sheet, you gotta have boundaries.
Yeah, you're definitely right on that. I am probably easier than most, probably because I'm generating income in other places.
Mhm,
And also because I don't wanna see the property fail.
mhm.
Obviously, a lot of people are gonna see this episode, so I have to be careful what I say sometimes because I'm well known out there, but there was a deal north of you
Oh,
that,
okay.
involved me signing a note, and they wanted me to bring the entire down payment to the table as well.
Oh, boy.
And this was a syndication, and I said to them, I said, "Whoa." I said, "Number 1, you just negotiated me to lower my fee for signing on the note. I'm taking all the risk." And I said, "You guys don't necessarily know this, but I've already talked to the banker, and the banker says I have to keep 6 figures into a bank just for your deal." I said, "I'm not putting down the down payment." And they're like, "Part of the program that we're a part of, they say that the sponsor is going to put down the down payment."
No.
I said, I just cut my normal fee in half because I really want to see you guys be successful. I'm not going to put up the money as well for the entire deal.
And then let them run it into the ground when they're
And
such beginners, they don't even know how things work.
so to make you laugh, that's how the deal fell apart, was that they could not find the money because they had all borrowed on credit cards to buy the program.
Oh, no. Okay, so
Yeah,
they're trying to have a rich guy bail them out to do a deal, but they're too broke to
yeah.
do.
Yeah, so they never ended up doing a syndication. This is probably 2 years ago, and, they're still trying to do some real estate stuff, and I wish that I try to talk to them once in a while and stuff like that just to keep in touch, and maybe they will do a big deal someday, but one of the biggest problems I've had, besides having nobody boots on the ground, is trying to work with people that have absolutely no money. No skin in the game at all is a big problem.
Yes.
And me signing the note, I don't always need to have as much skin in the game because I already put up my entire net worth for you to do your deal.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Asking which partners have liquidity, which ones are broke, who's going to bail this thing out. That's an important question for a limited partner to be asking. If this runs into trouble and it needs, are you going to do a limited partner capital call? Are you going to do a GP capital call? If you do a GP call, do the GPs have any money? Is the guy signing on the loan, the rich guy who's putting up his net worth, his balance sheet, is he putting any money into this deal or is he willing to put any money into this deal? And they'll tell you all rosy answers because they want you to invest, right? So you
right.
can't take what they say. You have to actually do a little bit of digging and find out who actually has the money. And you can ask if you're a serious limited partner to see personal financial statements. We talked about this on the podcast a few weeks ago. And he was saying, he's with the non disclosure, I would be willing to share that to show that I have liquidity to bail this thing out. Is the person you're investing with willing to do something similar? You just have to find out who can this ship if it goes wrong, it's
That's
horrible.
interesting. I'm sure you can, and you don't have to invest if they say no. I've
Mhm.
never had an LP ask. I would probably say no, but what I might also do is I might print off one page of a bank account and just,
Yes. Something to
you
show
know,
that not
not
everybody here is
not
broke.
the entire net worth. My wife doesn't even know what we own, so why
Yes.
would I tell that person?
If I wasn't planning on riding the ship, I wouldn't give my thing out because that's with the intention of saying, I am willing to put money in to save this thing. And if you're not willing to put money in to save the thing, you're just here to sign on the loan. It's also important to know that and to communicate that, which I'm
Yeah,
sure
that should easily be part of the discussions between the GPs at the beginning of the deal. It's not usually because
it's not.
everybody's like you said, raw, yeah, everything's gonna go perfect, this and that.
Mhm.
I learned a lot from the hotel because when we bought the hotel, the first night we had nobody stay at the unit. Because what happened was is that you don't know what you don't know. So here's a big one. When we bought the hotel, we didn't buy the rights to any of the OTAs, any of the online travel agencies. So he kept the Airbnb, he kept the booking.com.
Yeah.
So when nobody he closed down the booking because he owed like $6,000 and refused to pay them. So it was funny because so the first night we had two people that had already prepaid him. The second night we had basically nobody. The third day he calls up, and by the way, he's the one that has the loan on us too. And
Mm.
he thought he was going to foreclose on some Americans eventually. The third night he says, "Hey, I have someone that's interested in staying. I want a commission. I want a fee for giving you the lead here." And that was hilarious. My partner basically told him some nasty words. And he was mad at us because we were trying to do everything above the board. We were
Mhm.
trying to do everything the right way. He wanted us to lie to the government about how much we paid for the property
Yeah.
so that he would pay less in taxes.
Yeah. No, it happens all the time.
You
Towns,
weren't willing to do that.
countries. Yeah.
Well, it
You're
happens all the time. Number one, I don't feel it happens as much in the United States because the
in
IRS
small towns
obviously in a third world country, it's gonna happen more often.
more.
And it's buddy, even though the Dominican IRS is not as good as the American IRS, they're still pretty powerful.
Yeah. And I think that cultural clash, we've dealt with that on some of our properties in smaller towns where laborers, right, come in and they want paid in cash to then we can't get our expenses on our taxes if we pay you in cash, like you're hurting us on our own books. And then they don't seem to
Yeah, they don't get
understand.
at
And
all.
then you can't find anybody work there because nobody will do it unless you under the table cash. And so you really have to know going in what those cultural expectations are. But let's shift gears, scene change just a little bit. Let's talk about leaving the job. You mentioned that you were able to leave teaching and you it's odd to some people that you would choose to leave the less blue collar job. We're struggling with that ourselves right now. We're getting ready, or by the time people hear this, we'll be in Alaska, basically driving tour buses is a low stress way to make some extra cash so that we can invest. Because again, I have like this fear of killing the golden goose. I'm always looking for ways to throw more money into passive investments. And I'm struggling with the blue collar nature of that job and the social media impact of, oh, I'm this rich passive investor. Like, I'm driving a tour bus and I've been very public about it. But when your Sam's Club job and you switched over to Walmart and you kept that until what, like 2023? Talk to me
I
about
had bought
why.
the hotel and I quit because they denied me a week to go to the hotel.
And you were coming to Utah too for the best ever conference. And you're like, I don't need this job, but you kept it for a really long time. So let's talk about the multiple streams of income, the willingness to do whatever it takes, and why we're working jobs that we don't really need, but because there are obviously still benefits there. So
Well,
tell
there's
us your
benefit.
story.
It's still stability in some ways. You talk about the Gen Zs that are listening to this. If you're making decent money, you could easily blow it on stupid things. And
Yes.
when I say stupid things, I'm saying you could easily blow it on some illegal things too out there. So having a job in some ways can keep you behaving and calm.
Okay.
I have friends that have so many things in foreign countries and gone to jail and stuff like that because they don't really think about it. But having that job keeps you stable in some ways,
Okay.
even if it's a non-impressive job. When I worked at Walmart, I sold TVs and electronics, computers. I'd been there for 25 years. I had paid holidays, sick days, vacation days, stock options, retirement plan. I still have all that stuff. I still have the stock options, the dividends pay pretty well, stuff like that. But and it was a consistency thing too.
Mhm.
So I knew at those times that I could do that. The reason why I left teaching first, number one, teaching was more pressure on me. And number two, teaching was more time.
Okay.
So the pressure, I think about it, you're getting sometimes why do people leave a job? People leave a job because of bad management. So it's not always about the pay. I know
Mhm.
people have crappy pay, but they love who they work with. They love their manager, so they still work with them. If you look, the main reason why somebody leaves a job is usually a crappy manager.
Yeah.
So with principals, you have different years. One year, you're one of the top teachers in the building because that principal loves you. The next year, you suck because you're a different principal.
Yeah.
And they try to find every single way to get you in trouble. So at one point or another, it's like, yeah, I got to move on.
Okay.
And that's what I did. It's not only that, but freeing up during the business day was slightly more important to me too. Most of the things I was doing needed to be done between 9 and 5,
Okay.
whether it was going to the bank or different things versus the part-time job, which was mostly at night. Did I miss a little bit of time with family? Yes. But at the same point, I could squeeze that in on weekends and other times as well.
Mhm. Yeah, so it gave you probably more flexibility from that standpoint and less I've heard this said about blue collar jobs many times, like a white collar person will come home and just collapse, right? But a blue collar person will come home, take a shower, and go out dancing because there's something about the lower stress of not running the business yourself and not doing knowledge work that leaves something in the tank to go and have a good time. I've actually been a bus driver before. I used to drive the after school bus for our local karate school when my oldest daughter was like 2, and I'd strap her little car seat into the bus and we'd drive around and pick up kids from all the school and go drop them off at the karate studio just because he asked he's my next door neighbor, he asked me if I could help. I'm like, "I'm not doing anything. Sure, it's a little extra money." And my daughter loved it, like, all the kids and played with her. So there are intangible benefits other than just what he was paying me to do with my time. And it was a breakup of the day for a mom with a single toddler who wasn't really verbal. There were tons of benefits for me doing that. It was so low stress, except for the time when I put unleaded gas in the diesel. But other than that, low stress. And so I can really relate to that in some ways. I didn't run the business. I wasn't in charge of the asset management, the portfolio management. It was just you show up, you do your thing, and you go home, and then you can do something else with that money. So it's that kind of sounds like somewhat what you're describing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. When did you start talking publicly? Because the first time I heard you talk publicly about Walmart was when you posted, I quit. Like, I've been doing like the last 23 years or 25 years or whatever. And I finally today, I left and I was like, oh, I've never heard him talk about this publicly before.
I think I wrote "Double Life Over" was the Facebook post, something like that, but I didn't really talk about it publicly previous to that because, like you said, there is a stigma on social media, whether
Mhm.
you like it or not. If you think about it, most rich people, especially the way it's interpreted, have private jets or 4 houses that they live in and an amazing car, and I didn't have any of that stuff, nor did I really want it. I don't plan on having a private jet anytime soon. I can't afford one yet, but I don't plan to. Versus there are plenty of millionaires. So one of my favorite books is The Millionaire Next Door.
Yeah.
And where you have enough cash flow or passive income that you don't have to worry about life. So back to the concept, do I want to continue working? Yeah, I think I'd get bored if I didn't.
Mhm.
So at the same point, do I need to? Not necessarily.
Yeah. I agree. I think for me, do I need to work again? No. Do I want a better table? Yes. We got food, we have a table. I'd like a better table. And so I think for me, there is a financial incentive to it somewhat because I am so frugal and I am so security minded. I like to have a lot of money, but not spend a lot of money. Maybe it's the estrogen, I don't know. That just makes me say, I want to swim around in the money bin and not spend a lot. But when I
Scrooge
do
McDuck.
spend it, it's for fun stuff that really like the Marie Kondo. Does it bring you joy? That's how I am when I'm going through things like it really has to bring me joy before I'll keep it or spend money on it.
I was thinking about swimming in the money like Scrooge McDuck.
Yes, Scrooge McDuck, swimming in the money bin. That's me. And so for me, it's like there is a financial incentive to work. But I will say when we first got back from our big travels, right? And we're just working on our fund and we're trying to figure out what to do next. We were volunteering a ton. And I still am volunteering some now, but we've cut back on it. I hate to admit this, but the volunteering just wasn't as fulfilling as doing something in business. I love doing it. I will continue to do it. I want to do more of it, but I decided I'm not gonna start my own nonprofit. I'd rather just volunteer in somebody else's. And there was just something about the charity volunteer aspect of it for people that you knew were never gonna become better for it. That was really hard for me. And I'm like, I don't think I could really be a full-time volunteer, like living on passive income and volunteering full-time, which I thought was the dream. But then when I went and did it, I was like, this isn't the adventure I thought it was gonna be. I don't know.
I haven't done enough volunteering, so I can't speak for that at all, but I can see it. How often were you doing it?
A couple times a week.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I think the sweet spot might be once a week from what I've seen from friends that I know that have money that do well. They have a consistency like every Saturday morning
Mhm.
where they might do a soup kitchen or something like that. But
Yeah.
I can't speak enough about it. Am I busy? Absolutely, because I also have 3 kids that are teenagers right now.
Yes.
So my oldest is graduating high school this year. She's a 3 sport, Girl Scout selling, instrument playing, amazing kid.
Yeah.
And then I have, the twins, which are 4 years younger, and they all have sports and instruments and scouts, and both of them do something else. One's in karate, one's in we needed to pay a driver, just even though I wasn't working, we needed to pay a driver to help drive them around so much.
Yeah. A lot of taxing. Maybe you could pay me. I could be the karate school bus driver.
Hey,
Yeah.
Rhode Island.
Eh, you know what? Why not? I don't like to travel, but I do like to move places. I like to be there for several months at a time, which again is just me getting to define my own adventure. When we're talking about, I think that's the beautiful part, like about the show. You and I would have never met if we weren't trying to do like some cool business kinds of things, right? But now that we have, it's like you put yourself in positions to do cool stuff, and you're just going to meet cool people along the
Absolutely.
pathway. Yes. In that vein, I always ask everybody on the show, how do people get a hold of you after the show if they want to talk to you about any of the things we talked about today? But also describe like the kind of person that you help best, that it would be your most ideal contact. Like for me, it's a passive investor who wants to put money into our fund. That would be goal number one. Goal number two would be just like anything I've ever talked about on the show. If you need a connection or an introduction, reach out. I will do my best to connect you. So for me, that's my ideal person. How about you?
Obviously, I like chatting about real estate and business. I am looking for someone that has some kind of needle in a haystack opportunity. It
Okay.
doesn't have to be just real estate. It can just be weird and wild, something that they know they can make money on. Not necessarily more than a dream,
Yes.
something that they have a little expertise in, or something they have under contract, or something they know that for some reason there's a story behind it, that there's a pretty easy way to make money. I've bought properties, no money down. I've bought single family homes for $50,000, no money down. There's always great deals and opportunities out there. People just have to keep looking for them.
Yes.
The best way to get in contact with me, I'm all over social media. We have a podcast called The Cashflow Kings. LinkedIn, I probably do the least, but I'm big on Instagram, big on Facebook, and do some TikTok, no dances, mostly talking about real estate as I walk.
Yeah. Awesome. I feel like having a Frank in your life is kind of a prerequisite for success in real estate and business. I've really appreciated our relationship. And I know that you are one of those people who everybody has something good to say about. And when I meet people, especially from the East Coast, I'm like, Frank Patalano. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, he's my, I'm like bragging about it. Right. So if you out there listening need a Frank in your life, it could be Frank. Just give him a call and get in touch with them, get in touch with me. And we'd love to help you out any way we can planning out your next passive income adventure. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Emma.
All right. We'll talk to you next week.